West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Steve Bannon's fate is now in the hands of Attorney General Merrick Garland as he considers whether to proceed with criminal contempt charges against Bannon for defying a subpoena from the January 6th Select Committee. 9 House Republicans voted with all 220 Democrats in support of this move. This despite continued attempts by other Republican members to downplay the investigation.
We know what this is really about. This is about getting at President Trump.
Because they can't build back better, they've just decided to build back meaner. The Select Committee despises Steve Bannon's politics, so they're abusing their power to put him in jail.
Joining me now is former Republican Congressman and former presidential candidate Joe Walsh and Alyssa Farah. She is the former White House Communications Director for President Trump. Thank you so much to both of you for being here today. To you first, Joe, 9 Republicans, that's significant, but that's not many.
Oh, that's, Brianna, respectfully, that's nothing. I was thinking last night, I was a Republican for my whole adult life. I left the party 20 months ago. The party no longer believes in truth, no longer believes in democracy. And yesterday, they just reaffirmed that they no longer believe in the rule of law. That's all this was. It wasn't about Bannon. Our government was attacked. Bannon was given a lawful subpoena. He defied it. But over 200 Republicans said they don't care.
But like Matt Gaetz is saying, this is mean. That's his defense. This is mean.
Well, the House Republicans essentially forfeited their right to oversight going forward. They're saying enforcing subpoenas just doesn't matter and holding people in contempt just doesn't matter. But the funny thing that your viewers should know is most House Republicans actually hate Steve Bannon. They just live in perpetual fear of him going after them on his podcast or his various different outlets. He's going to actually continue to be a thorn in the side of them going forward, which is funny. You know, if I were a Kevin McCarthy, I'd be worried about him trying to have somebody challenge me in leadership when Republicans take back the House. So I'm a little bit surprised to see them just so lining up behind him.
It's a very interesting point that you make. Now, Jim Banks, who was the last Republican that we heard in that sort of montage of Republicans whitewashing what happened, Kevin McCarthy wanted him on the Oversight Committee. When he had 5 picks, he picked Jim Banks, but Nancy Pelosi said no. Jim Banks is a coup enabler. That was why she said no. He would have been the ranking member if she had not rejected him on those grounds. And what we have now learned is that Jim Banks has been sending letters to government agencies asking for documents that are going to the January 6th committee and signing them as the ranking member. I might start signing things as the Queen of England.
Brianna, it pains me. This is a party that lives in an alternative reality. You are correct. They don't give a damn about Bannon. But Bannon is where the base is. Tens of millions of people listen to him every day. These Republicans are afraid of the base.
They're afraid of the base, but what do you make of a Jim Banks pretending to be on the committee. Or saying, he did say in it, look, I'm not in the role that I should be in. But then he signs it as if he's this shadow committee and he needs to be looped in on all of these documents. What do you think?
You know, it's like, I'm always reminded, Trump's like the most dishonest person who's ever lived. And he's enabled these other Republicans to lie and to fudge and to commit fraud and to cheat. And for banks to just put out dishonest stuff like that, Brianna, it's part and parcel.
It goes to your point that they've forfeited oversight, but here he is attempting to have it.
Right, and it was always a strategic error by Republicans to not sit some of the members other than Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. I think it would have actually been good if this had been a truly bipartisan, fully staffed by Republican and Democrat members, but they forfeited that right. So to now then be trying to get documents as the faux ranking member makes no sense. Liz Cheney is the ranking member.
Let's talk now about Texas, where the governor has appointed as Secretary of State a lawyer, John Scott, who briefly repped Donald Trump's interests in challenging the results in Pennsylvania. And, it seems like this is all being put in place, this continued effort to change the outcome of an election. And I wonder if Democrats and even Republicans opposed to it really are noticing or doing what they need to do.
Well, and it's more widespread than just Texas. So you've got Jody Hice challenging the sitting Georgia Secretary of State as well. This is a concerted effort by Trump world to try to get loyalists into Secretary of State roles in states across the country for presumably exactly what you're saying, which is to challenge results of future elections. And I've said this recently, this is not just about 2024 and the next presidential race. We need to watch Senate races as well. And the Trump-aligned candidates, are they going to concede if they lose? Or are they going to draw these things out, try to challenge them in court, try to go to loyalist secretaries of state? This is the consequences of when we just do not let our institutions hold and we try to challenge the basic facts of elections. And we're seeing it across the country right now. There will be more than Texas. There'll be more than Georgia.
Brianna, to answer your question, no. The Democrats don't understand what Republicans are doing right now. This is scary. This is the bigger concern. I know everybody's talking about access to the vote. I think Democrats and Americans are going to come out in 22 and 24 and vote no matter what Republicans try to do. But what's going on in Texas and other states is they're trying to rig how the vote is counted and who counts the vote and how these votes and counts are certified. That's really scary, and Democrats need to pay attention.
Well, that makes challenging on the back end harder. There doesn't seem to be, the phrase about prevention, an ounce of prevention. There doesn't seem to be much prevention, right?
This is what we all should be focused on. In every state, they're trying to rig how and who counts the vote, how it's counted, and whether it's certified or not. This is scary. It's a party, Brianna, that is anti-democracy, period.
Well, and I would say this. You wouldn't need to do this if you thought you were running a winning presidential candidate. And this gets back to the broader point. If Donald Trump lost, he could not get enough people to support him. 74 million people versus Biden's 81 million people. Why don't we just run a Republican presidential candidate who can actually get elected and actually win, so we're not having to set up these faux challenges all over the country?
Yeah,
that seems like the
be?
easy answer.
Who would that be?
Tim Scott.
Tim Scott, you say?
No one. It's Trump's party. No one's going to challenge him if he runs.
It's a takeover. All right, Alyssa, Joe, great to see you guys this morning. Thank you.
It is Friday, the 22nd of October of 2021, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Well, how are ya? It is Friday. We've made it to the weekend, and we can enjoy the weekends now. Unlike how it was with the previous guy. Boy, those were torturous, weren't they? Yeah, there's a little bit of torture still left because the resonance of the former guy is, well, still resonating. Can't get rid of him. Boy, sure like to, though. On other news fronts, yes, my mom came home yesterday after, well, being gone for about a month. Yeah. And you know what else? Of all the people that were in the hospital in Grants Pass for COVID when she went in. She was the only one that survived. 4 passed while she was there. When they moved her, another 6 passed. My mom is 84 years old. She even had a heart attack in the midst of it. But she was the only one vaccinated. The only one. And that says something right there. My sister went down the list of what she had and what she got sick from. You know, 'cause she had some, let's be clear, she's 84 years old. She has some comorbidities. That's why it always bugs me when people go, oh, well, they didn't really die of COVID. They died of this other thing that they had. You know, they were living just fine until they got the COVID. So don't start with me. All right. So I guess I could have gotten the sheet. I wouldn't necessarily be violating HIPAA because I'm not a medical professional. I'm her son. But anyway, wow, she had a lot of stuff going on. And it was manifested because of the COVID. Just exaggerated or inflamed, all sorts of stuff that was happening. And she went into sepsis, but not into septic shock. Came close. Very close. So, yeah, she's home. And I got to tell you, the dogs absolutely loved it. Her dog, the little Yorkshire poodle, Ginger, she's such a cutie. But, yeah, that's my mom's dog, and she'd been moping around quite a bit, and, you know, I think she had resigned herself that Mom was gone. So, when Mom got here, Ginger's an older dog now. Her eyesight isn't so well, but as we got a little bit closer to the gate when Mom was getting wheelchaired up, that's when she recognized. And she was just so happy. I wagged her little tail and did her little circle dance. And she had been sleeping with me, but she slept quietly with Mom last night. I asked Mom how it was, and she said Ginger hardly moved at all, which is not the case before Mom went into the hospital from this affliction. The dog was actually quite a bit of a butt. But now she seems to just be happy that Mom is back. Gunner, he's such a great watchdog. Every time Mom would cough or, you know, she'd call for me, Gunner would bark and let me know, Mom wants you, Mom wants you. He's so great. So, yeah, you know, I'll just reiterate once again. We all have issues with people in our lives. But really, we don't want to have some sort of petty, negative squabble as being the thing that we remember the last. Yeah, I think that maybe we want to love a lot more, let the petty BS fall by the wayside, because really it is just petty BS when put up against the immensity and mystery of this universe that we all exist in. Got a little bit of bad news. My sister said I really shouldn't be divulging it, and I'm wondering if I should, because I have gone off before. But what do I do? Do I violate a confidence? I didn't promise. But I will say that there's a family member who is a maggot who has mocked people having COVID. And I wouldn't say necessarily mocked my mom, but blamed the vaccine as being the reason that Mom got COVID, even though she got the vaccine way back in April. Thank God. It saved her. It did. But anyway, this particular family member, you probably know who I'm talking about. Well, he's contracted COVID. And he's very upset that the world lives in the real world, and he is still living within this fantasy maggot world. I guess they call it Trump world now. He is actually quite sick. I'm a bit concerned, regardless of our differences. But he was supposed to have surgery also in the midst of all this, and unfortunately, because of the COVID, they're going to have to delay it. And of course, he's not happy about that prospect, and I don't blame him. But he's still in this fantasy world that, you know, COVID's not serious, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just so ridiculous. And, yeah, I'm a bit concerned because he is not vaccinated, as far as I know. He might be and just doesn't want to tell anybody because you don't admit that kind of stuff, apparently, in maggot world. But I'm going to have my sister check up on him. Hopefully he did get the vaccine and he has a leg up on, you know, getting over this, because I did not feel very well, I got to tell you. Now, of course, I didn't have to go in a hospital and, you know, be intubated like my mom. But I got to tell you, it's not something you want to get. It kind of sucks. It's not a flu. I don't care what anybody says. It is not the flu. You kind of think it is, but then at some point you realize this is weird. I've never had this before, and we haven't. But now we do. It's among us, and we have to learn to survive in the midst of it. And one way is taking prudent precautions, you know. Continue to wear a mask. In fact, we have to wear a mask even more diligently now because my mom is immune compromised, and I do not want her to get this again. It won't end well. So continue washing your hands copiously and social distance. I think we need to continue these protocols for an indefinite period of time. It is not an infringement upon our freedoms. In fact, doing those is an infringement upon dying because you don't want to. At least most people don't. I have read that right-wing conservative groups, is it the Federalist Society? Because I saw the Federalist Society in the midst of this reportage, that extreme right-wing organizations are now telling their people dying from COVID is a good thing. It's like a step to heaven. That's a cult. That is exactly what cults tell you. Hail bop. God. And these same people who were talking about, remember back in the 80s when everybody was afraid of Satan, and Satan was going to get into the daycare centers, and Satan was there, and then satanic illegal aliens were abducting kids from daycare centers, and anybody who listened to heavy metal, I'm not a big heavy metal fan, but anybody listening to heavy metal was like a Satanist, and yeah, it's just kids dressed in as goths, you know, they were getting arrested for being Satanists, mostly in the South. So these same people talking about Satan, I'll tell you, if Satan does exist, it's personified in the virus, and they're taking the side of the virus. I guess Satan works in mysterious ways. Yes, Satan does. Okay. Oh, a little bit more news on Mom, just in terms of the infrastructure of her being back home. Now, she's not up and about walking around and all that. This is still going to take a little bit of time. We did wheelchair her into the house. Now, she was able to, you know, walk from her bedroom door to her bed. And the way that her bathroom is situated, there's a lot of handholds. And we have actual handholds there, too. But between her cane and handholds, she can get into the bathroom fairly well by herself. At the care home, it was quite a bit of a trek to get across the room to get to the bathroom facility there, so she needed help. But they want her to get up and walk around a little bit, but, not quite ready to get her out to the living room unassisted. And since it's, I should tell you, it's raining quite a bit. Looks like we'll have a lot of rain coming in. So we won't be going outside necessarily. I don't know about drives. I think that's probably going to be sometime in the future. But we do have a bit of help coming in, which will be helpful. We'll have a home care aide coming in twice a week to help with a little bit of the cleaning because I'm not a young guy anymore and I've got a lot to do. So actually, I kind of like the idea of someone coming in and helping with the cleaning, especially since my mom is not reverted, but she has done something the exact opposite of how she raised us as kids. And that was not having a bunch of clutter on tabletops. No, my mom is embrace the whole grandma mode. You can't find a bare spot on a tabletop anywhere in the house to put anything because there's already about 3 or 4 things in that spot already. Doodads, knickknacks, tchotchkes. So the point being is that it is a pain in the rear to dust with all this stuff around. Well, maybe an executive decision has to be made. Maybe. But she also has a occupational therapist, a physical therapist, and a home care nurse who will be coming in and administering, shots and other things that she'll continue to need. The heart attack was somewhat of a concern, but Mom's heart was surprisingly strong. And so, yeah, we still want to keep on top of that because she did have pneumonia as well, COVID pneumonia. And she had aspirated something too, but according to the chart, it was COVID-induced pneumonia. So we want to stay on top of all this. And it will be very helpful that we have this backstop of help. And that has a lot to do with her insurance and the pension and all that. So lucky that. It would be nice if the rest of our society was so protected. Very nice, wouldn't it be? Indeed. Well, we should get into the curated part of the show. It being Friday, and we did. We curated a show. So starting off in the Bistro Cafe, of course, at the top, that was the CNN Keeler. What's her name again? House Republicans hate Steve Bannon, but they fear him, mostly because they fear the base. And I got to tell you, if you fear your own base, I don't know. It's stupid. And then this is what cracks me up. Because they fear their base, they think that we fear our base. No. There's a big difference between what they consider their base and who our base is. Because our base is about representative democracy, being good neighbors, the handshake policy and all of that, the golden rule, remember that? Whereas the other side, they're all about eliminationism and hate and taking away rather than adding to. No wonder they fear their base. On the rest of the menu, a federal civil rights investigation found widespread racial harassment at a Utah school district. U.S. financial regulators approved steps toward addressing the dangers that climate change poses to the nation's financial system, let alone what it might just do to your house. And NASA launched a tool to measure water lost to evaporation in the West. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where thousands of people rallied in the streets of Sudan's capital city, demanding a fully civilian government. And Moscow is closing schools and businesses as Russia recorded the highest number of coronavirus infections and deaths since the pandemic began. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link. The chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. Once again, as a reminder, I kind of reminded maybe a little bit too early in the week, but on the weekends, mostly we will be featuring interviews and other things from Netroots Nation 21, in which Ricky and Kelly took care of for Netroots Radio again this year. So look to that and check out our schedule at netrootsradio.com. It's right there. If you would look across the page from our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the left there is the link to our Patreon page. And if you could afford an espresso type coffee drink, and if you could afford to send those funds to us once a month, we're able to stretch those dollars beyond compare, pay our bills, and fly under the radar, continue this resistance against the hostile Nazi takeover of the United States of America, and thereby helping us fulfill our civic duty in doing so. And we've been doing this for 10 years, so we have quite a bit of experience in stretching those dollars, and also this resistance against these Nazis, because that's really what they are. But thank you for your generosity, and thank you for your generosity in the future as well. We're going to need it. You can follow the station, Netroots Radio, on Twitter at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thanks, Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime, and then get those show notes and links linked up on Twitter and those other social media platforms. And you know the one I'm talking about that wants to change their name, rebrand. Yeah, that'll help. Anyway, look for the show notes and links. They are quite important to this whole endeavor. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. And please do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. Oh, my. All right, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays is out of the Associated Press by Lindsay Whitehurst and Sophia Eppolito. A federal civil rights investigation found widespread racial harassment of Black and Asian American students at a Utah school district, including hundreds of documented uses of the N-word and other racial epithets over the last 5 years. The probe also found physical assaults, derogatory racial comments, and harsher discipline for students of color at Davis School District, the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division said in a statement. And that was yesterday, Thursday, by the way. The district has agreed to take several steps as part of a settlement agreement, including a new department to handle complaints, more training, and data collection. Black students throughout the district told investigators about similar experiences of white and non-black students calling them the N-word, referring to them as monkeys or apes, and saying that their skin was dirty or looked like feces, according to the department's findings. Students also made monkey noises at their black peers, repeatedly referenced slavery and lynching, and told black students to go pick cotton and you are my slave. The investigation found black students were also disciplined more harshly than their white peers for similar behavior and were denied the ability to form student groups while supporting similar requests by other students. District officials admitted to federal investigators that their discipline data from at least 4 years revealed that staff treated students of color differently than white students, but the district did nothing to correct these disparities, according to the department, because they didn't see anything wrong with it. If those black kids weren't breaking the law, we wouldn't be disciplining them now, would we? The district acknowledged in a statement the investigation revealed incidents that were not handled properly and pledged to resolve any previous complaints. The district is wholeheartedly committed to creating and maintaining a safe and welcoming environment for all students, not just the white kids, free from harassment and discrimination. We are hopeful that this agreement is the start of a new chapter in which Black and Asian American students will attend Davis schools without fear, said Andrea Martinez, acting United States Attorney for the District of Utah, which released the results of the investigation jointly with the Civil Rights Division. Black and American or Asian American students are each roughly 1% of the approximately 73,000 students enrolled in the district north of Salt Lake City. Josh Boak and Martin Kretzinger of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. U.S. financial regulators approved a series of steps towards addressing the dangers that climate change poses to the nation's financial system. The Financial Stability Oversight Council, which is headed by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and includes Fed Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, acknowledged in a report that climate change is a serious economic threat. Climate-related impacts in the form of warming temperatures, rising sea levels, droughts, wildfires, intensifying storms, and other climate-related events are already imposing significant costs upon the public and the economy. The Council's 133-page report says it is the responsibility of the Council and its members to ensure the financial system's resiliency to climate-related risks. The report includes more than 30 proposals aimed at improving efforts to assess risks. It put forward recommendations to upgrade the collection of risk data and also ways of making sure the public has access to the data. The report was released 10 days before the UN Conference on Climate Change in Glasgow, Scotland. It signals the Biden administration's intention to tell the broader international community that it is putting together the policy architecture to address climate change and improve the resilience of financial markets. With the U.S. lagging behind the EU and the United Kingdom in responding to climate change's economic threats, the administration hopes to use the report to assert more leadership on the issue. As recommended by the report, a special advisory committee would be established of scientists, Wall Street executives, business and labor leaders, environmentalists, and others to help develop standards for monitoring the economic impacts of climate change. Peterson and Suman Nashadam of the Associated Press bring us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. NASA yesterday, Thursday, launched an online platform with information on how much water evaporates into the atmosphere from plants, soils, and other surfaces in the U.S. West. Data, it says, will help water managers, farmers, and state managers better manage resources in the parched region. The platform, OpenET, uses satellite imagery from the Landsat program a decades-long project of NASA and the U.S. Geological Survey that records human and natural impacts on Earth's surface. Specifically, it provides data for 17 western states down to the quarter acre on how much evapotranspiration has taken place. That's the process by which moisture in leaves, soil, and other surfaces evaporates into the air. The West has been mired in drought for more than 2 decades. Scientists say human-caused climate change has intensified conditions. Water levels at key reservoirs on the Colorado River have fallen to historic lows alongside growing demand, prompting the federal government to declare water cuts for some states next year. A blazing summer and years of record-breaking wildfires have also zapped moisture from the ground. Detailed information on soil moisture could help farmers and water managers better plan during dry conditions and reduce how much water is used for irrigation, NASA scientists said on a Thursday call with reporters, which was yesterday, of course. Farmers and water managers have not had consistent, timely data on one of the most important pieces of information for managing water, which is the amount of water that's consumed by crops and other plants as they grow, said Robin Grimm, a water specialist with the Environmental Defense Fund, which helped NASA develop the tool alongside other environmental groups and Google. To date, that data has been expensive and fragmented, she said. Many large farms in dry areas, such as California's Central Valley, already have years of experience using advanced data systems to measure evapotranspiration and other water metrics that influence their growing and harvesting seasons and watering schedules. Meanwhile, in Colorado, rancher Joe Stanko in Steamboat Springs had read about the new tool in a magazine. Her family grows hay for their cattle, and she said the platform could help them determine which fields need more water to replenish soil. It could also help them decide when to harvest hay. NASA said the platform includes historical data dating back to 1984. In coming months, it will be updated to include information about precipitation rates with the same level of detail. Eventually, the tool will extend to other parts of the U.S., including areas around the Mississippi River and the Appalachian region, scientists said. Well, that's good news. Let's go to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, the end of an era. Some more august reviewer than me may have coined the term Bondverse already, but I'll claim it until I know better. In Bondverse, we kind of know what we're in for. There'll be a love interest with an integral connection to the plot, a villain with an apocalyptic scheme in his own private lair, and a facial deformity, check and check in No Time to Die, as well as an opulent and usually tropical background for the most extreme stunts a Bond movie budget can afford. And of course, there are the bureaucrats in London, which in Bondverse is still the defense hub of Western civilization. We have all this here, and we'd hate it if we didn't. We also have a continuation of blistering pre-credit scenes which set up the action and reference prior Bond adventures. In this one, we meet Madeline, Léa Seydoux again, 5 years prior to the story here, and then in it, Plus, we get some backstory on her. This time out, there really is chemistry between her and Daniel Craig's Bond, which needed to be stepped up to make the emotional conclusion work. God knows how much Christoph Waltz got for his minutes of screen time as Blofeld strapped to a chair, but we can say the evil torch is passed to Rami Malek's Lucifer Safin. And yes, the character's first name sounds like Lucifer, but his evil intentions are only partially sustained by Malek's performance. We do meet some new faces, obliquely addressing a recent controversy over whether a future Bond could be black. We're introduced to Nomi, Lashana Lynch, as the new 007, since technically Bond is retired here. Like the agent in 24 previous outings, No Time to Die fulfills its mission to Bondverse, bringing the Craig era to a close, and few fans will want to miss it. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Where did life come from? How do stars and planets form? Professor Avina van des Hoek has devoted her career to answering these questions. In 2018, she received the Kavli Prize in Astrophysics for her work. Scientific American Custom Media, in partnership with the Kavli Prize, reconnected with Avina to discuss the latest developments in unraveling the mysteries of space. Avina van des Hoek is known for studying the universe, but her career could have gone in a completely different direction.
My scientific love is especially for molecules. I just had a very good high school teacher in chemistry and not so good in physics, and that's what drove me to chemistry at the university.
But then Avina's advisor died, and she was left without an academic direction.
My then boyfriend and now husband, he had actually just taken a course and he had heard about these molecules in interstellar space. And he said to me, well, isn't that something for you?
So Avina shifted her focus from chemistry on Earth to chemistry in space.
So it was actually, fantastic opportunity. Still the same molecules, but now in a much more interesting laboratory, actually. The biggest laboratory that you can imagine.
In that giant laboratory, Avina turned her attention not to planets and stars, but the space between them, called interstellar clouds.
It's such a tenuous gas that is there, yet it is the material out of which new stars and new planets are being born.
Swirling around in these clouds are elements like carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen. But how do they come together to form planets? In time, Avina and her colleagues realized that a key ingredient is space dust.
Think of sand grains, but then 1,000 times smaller than the grains of sand on the beach.
These little grains play an important role in building molecules. You see, space is so empty, it would take forever for atoms to bump into each other.
But the dust grains are actually a very good place for these atoms to land on, and once they are on the grains, to actually meet each other and form a bond.
These dust grains make it possible for atoms to form everything from water to the hydrogen that helps an interstellar cloud collapse and turn into a star. But the dust isn't done yet. When a new star forms, the tiny particles swirl around it. Eventually, those pieces of dust collide and stick to each other.
Out of this micron size, you make pebbles, you make bricks, you make moon-sized bodies, you make Mars-sized bodies, and ultimately then you will make the core of a giant planet or an Earth-like planet.
Avina says experiments in the lab have helped her unravel how this process works. But she also relies on powerful telescopes, including what's known as ALMA, a field of 66 high-powered antennas in northern Chile.
It's at 5,000 meters altitude. We always talk about it as being a breathtaking experience to be there.
ALMA might have been a failure without Avina's help. She played a significant role in convincing scientists from different countries to work together on the project. Now that ALMA has been making observations for nearly 10 years, Avina says it's lived up to its expectations.
ALMA has really been a revolution in our field because it allows us to zoom in on these regions in which new stars and planets are formed.
Do you think we on Earth won the planetary lottery? Were we just incredibly lucky? Or is this just a natural consequence of all the different interactions you're observing in space?
Yeah, well, that's one of the fundamental questions, one of the biggest questions that mankind has. Are we alone? Were we the lucky ones?
Avina says, based on her research, water and the other ingredients you need to form life are present at the formation of nearly all new planets. Scientists also know that on average, every star has at least 2 planets.
Given that there are a few 100 billion stars even in our own Milky Way.
And even if only 1% of their planets were in the right location with the right conditions for life to form.
That already tells you that the chances are not slim. They are actually fairly large that something similar to what on Earth may also have happened on other planets.
Of course, Avina says the jury is still out about how often complex life, like human life, could develop on other planets. But we're not far from finding an answer.
In the coming decades, we will actually have the technology available to really start searching for the signatures of life.
One of those pieces of technology is the James Webb Space Telescope, which is set to launch later this year. The JWST will be powerful enough to zoom in on individual planets outside of our solar system, known as exoplanets.
Once JWST is launched, we and other groups are going to turn our telescopes on mature exoplanets and see whether there are possible signatures of life in those atmospheres.
Avina says it's an exciting time to study the universe.
We are now able to understand how we were formed. Think about our origins. It's right there in space, between the stars.
Thanks to Avina and her colleagues, we now know that our Earth grew from the tiniest particles of dust. And soon, we'll know if that same dust grew to form planets that other living beings call home. Avina van de Hoek is a professor of molecular astrophysics at Leiden University in the Netherlands. In 2018, she was the sole awardee for the Kavli Prize in Astrophysics. The Kavli Prize recognizes scientists for pioneering advances in the fields of astrophysics, nanoscience, and neuroscience. The Kavli Prize is a partnership among the Norwegian Academy of Science and Letters, the Norwegian Ministry of Education and Research, and the U.S.-based Kavli Foundation. This work was produced by Scientific American Custom Media and made possible through the support of the Kavli Prize.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Are congressional elections rigged?
I'm Tom Hartman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
Consider Texas, which has had 36 congressional districts and due to the 2020 census now will have 38, and where, under the new map drawn by the legislature, 35 of the 38 seats, 92%, are designed to not be remotely competitive. 92%, thanks to what's called packing and cracking. Packing means packing persons with similar voting patterns into one district. Cracking means breaking up such a group into so many different districts that they can't really influence the outcome in any one. With sophisticated computer programs, these numbers can be calculated and predicted with surgical accuracy, and they have been. Placing the 2020 election results into the new districts shows that Trump would have won 23 of the 38 by double digits, and Biden would have won 12 by double digits, meaning that only 3 of the 38 had a margin of 10 points or less. In addition, despite the very large growth in the Latino population, the new map has no majority Latino district. In 2019, the Supreme Court 5-4 ruled that they would do nothing to interfere with partisan gerrymandering. So in Texas, and in every state where that's the norm, you will now be able to know the results of congressional elections before any ballots are cast. How, you might ask? Can you call such a system a democracy?
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because democracy and advocacy begin with you, and freedom can't defend itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1934. That was the day that the bank robber known as Pretty Boy Floyd was gunned down by federal agents in Ohio. He was born Charles Arthur Floyd in 1904 in Georgia. His family moved to Oklahoma when he was a boy. Like many Oklahomans during this era, he fell on hard economic times. Floyd turned to crime. He did a 4-year stretch in a Missouri prison for payroll robbery. When he got out, he tried to get a job in the Oklahoma oil fields. Unable to find work, Floyd took up bank robbing. He robbed banks in Kentucky, Ohio, and Missouri. He got caught and convicted in Ohio, but escaped on his train trip to prison. He made his way back to Oklahoma. There he became a folk hero. Locals called him the Robin Hood of the Cookson Hills. Legend had it that Floyd destroyed mortgage papers when he robbed banks, winning him friends among farmers reeling from the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl. Floyd became a national fugitive when he was accused of killing federal agents in Kansas City. He denied he was ever involved in the killings. J. Edgar Hoover, head of the U.S. Bureau of Investigation, named Floyd public enemy number 1. Finally, the law caught up with Floyd in an Ohio cornfield. His body was returned to Oklahoma, where as many as 40,000 came to his funeral. Woody Guthrie remembered Floyd in song.
But many a starving farmer, the same old story told, how the outlaw paid their mortgage and saved their little home.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Others tell you about a stranger that come to beg a meal. Underneath his napkin left $1,000 bill.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Foggy conditions are prevailing at the moment with rain showers and overcast skies developing during the afternoon hours with highs around 60, winds out of the southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and looks like we'll be getting something less than 1/4 of an inch of rain for the day, and we got almost an inch yesterday and last night. Let's see, cloudy with light rain developing after midnight tonight with lows in the upper 40s, winds out of the south at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and it looks like that's going to bring something less than another 1/4 of an inch. And then tomorrow, showers in the morning with highs around 60, then cloudy in the afternoon, winds light and variable. A chance of rain is at 70%, bringing with it also something less than 1/10 of an inch. And we do have rain forecast for every day for the next week or more. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon continue to rise. We have now confirmed cases standing at 229,082 people. Looks like we'll be hitting 300,000 infected real soon. And our deceased stand at 310. Ragweed pollen is rated low outside the window here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is good at 40 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is low at 2. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 29.89 inches. Visibility is down to 1.5 miles. And relative humidity is at 100%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 55 and mostly cloudy. Paris is 55 and cloudy. Rome is 72 and partly cloudy. Kyiv is 57 degrees and fair. Kabul is 48 and clear. Hong Kong is 63 and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 52 with rain showers. Sydney, Australia is 65 and clear. San Francisco, California is 55 degrees with a lot of rain from, well, the river system that's floating in the sky. And New York, New York is 64 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Noah Elenway of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Thousands of people rallied in the streets of Sudan's capital city yesterday, Thursday, demanding a fully civilian government as the relationship between military generals and pro-democracy groups deteriorated over the country's future. As crowds swelled in separate marches in Khartoum, protest organizers said that security forces had attacked a group of demonstrators near the parliamentary headquarters. A police statement, however, said that some demonstrators had departed from the otherwise peaceful march and attacked the security forces, leaving policemen with injuries, including 2 with gunshot wounds. Sudan has been ruled by an interim civilian military government since 2019. The military ousted longtime autocrat Omar al-Bashir in April that year, following 4 months of mass protests against his rule. With al-Bashir toppled, the ruling generals agreed to share power with civilians representing the protest movement.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Vladimir Isachenkov of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Restaurants, movie theaters, and many retail stores in Moscow will be closed for 11 days starting October 28th, along with other new restrictions, officials said yesterday, Thursday, as Russia recorded the highest number of coronavirus infections and deaths since the pandemic began. Putin has voiced consternation about Russians' hesitancy to get vaccinated and urged them to get the shots, but firmly ruled out making them mandatory. He responded to the rising infections and deaths by ordering Russians to stay off work from October 30th to November 7th, when the country already is observing a 4-day national holiday, and Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin followed up by introducing new restrictions in the capital starting even earlier. Gyms, cinemas, and other entertainment venues, as well as most stores, will close in Moscow, along with kindergartens and schools starting October 28th through November 7th. Restaurants and cafes will only be open for takeout or delivery orders during that period. Food stores and pharmacies can stay open. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here on Monday for River City Hash Mondays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here on Monday. Yes, on Monday, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. De novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.